Hello and welcome to Wisdom Workshop. Please like the video and subscribe with all notifications turned on. In this video, we're going to tackle the words of Robert Kiyosaki in his last warning. So be sure to sit back and enjoy the video. In today's world of fake news and disinformation, what else do we have? What we all need are reputable sources. Natural gas is being used as a weapon by Ukraine and Russia. I predicted 11 years ago that this would be used as a weapon, and here it is. Everyone has always been sounding the drum to warn people of what's gonna happen, but the imminent danger is still fast approaching and is actually getting worse. So that's what I'm gonna talk to you about today. How bad things are, where we are now, and what's going on. There has been a mention about Executive Order 14067 and what is the problem with this executive order specifically, which was recently signed with Biden and company a few months ago. Well, it has several aspects, and the issue with executive orders and legislation in general is that you have to study the small print, which you do, but you also have to consider the hidden intentions. Anyone can read it since it's a public document, but what's behind it and where they're heading with it is where the urgency comes in. It's essentially an initiative that accelerates the United States' transition to a central bank digital currency known as CBDC. These are occurring all over the globe. Beijing already has one, and it's past the experimental level, and it was rolled out during the Winter Olympics in February. The Bahamas, believe it or not, has a digital currency, as do a few other countries that have previously gone in that way. Europe has the European Central Bank, which is well on its way. Because they produce the money, the United States and the Federal Reserve recognized its significance. They were observing it, but they were taking their time, as if to say, hey, we're the world's largest saving currency and reserve currency, which is the dollar, and we don't want to rush into something if it's not well thought through. They were collaborating on research and development with MIT. They've got some specialists there, so it makes perfect sense, but then they hurried it and said, no, we need to move on quickly with this and make up ground, and that's what 14067 was really about. But that's what you get from reading, so what's the secret agenda? First and foremost, a little background: a digital dollar is still a dollar, a digital Chinese yuan is still a yuan, and a digital euro is still a euro. So it's not new currency, but it's a new payment mechanism and a new kind of currency if you want to think of it that way, even if it's still the dollar because it's related to getting rid of physical cash. In other words, I'll spend a minute explaining what the central bank digital currency is and what the hidden agenda is behind it, but as I go through the list of really bad things that can happen, you say, well, okay, but I still have cash. I can go down the bank and get whatever $10,000 or $100,000 in cash I want. And that, by the way, is not an easy task. They claim it's legal, it's not unlawful, but if you attempt it, they'll most likely ask you to come back and schedule another appointment because the truth is, they don't have that much money. So it's not that easy to get your money. But in theory, you can, and that's the alternative. So they must not only promote the digital currency agenda, but also get rid of paper cash. Because as long as you have cash, you can get around this. So these two things are moving quite quickly. Returning to the central bank digital money, it's not a cryptocurrency, and it's not stored on a blockchain. A blockchain is simply a ledger. They've been there since the 1980s. It's not a massive problem, however, this ledger will be managed by someone, most likely the Federal Reserve, or it may be a new government entity. It's similar to a bank account, so we might soon find ourselves in a situation where I have an account with a bank and you have accounts with banks that are either members of the Federal Reserve System or smaller banks that are correspondents of larger banks that are members of the Federal Reserve System, such as Banks America and Wells Fargo. The idea is that banks retain all of the books. We may live in a world where you have a Federal Reserve System account. We'd have it on our phones, and if I send you money, the Fed would take it from my account and transfer it to yours, which is sort of like a Venmo type of thing but with greater amounts and much more. That has consequences for decentralization in banks, because if you can do that, which you technically can, who needs banks? However, the selling pitch is that it's better, quicker, and less expensive, which it is. So for example, if I go to a store and purchase a publication with a credit card, I say I got the item. The shopkeeper or wholesaler has this receivable and they sell it to a merchant acquirer. Merchant acquirers are finance companies that purchase a huge number of receivables from small and major shops. They then take that package receivable, which is now in the hundreds of millions or more, and deliver it to MasterCard or Visa, where they get paid, obviously making a little extra income on that MasterCard or Visa, and then send those receivables to the banks that issue credit cards where I get a bill and pay it. So consider this. I'll buy anything as long as you provide 5 financial intermediaries: the shop, the merchant acquirer, MasterCard or Visa, and the issuing bank. The total costs would be about 2.5% or 3%. So why do we need 5 financial intermediaries with 3% fees to buy an item when you can just have a Federal Reserve System account and everything goes via the Federal Reserve System quickly, easily, and cheaply? That is how it could work if you had this digital dollar. So once it's digital, a handful of things will occur. First, they'll be aware of your whereabouts. They already know where you are from your phone, and we have face recognition software too, and folks who attempt to evade it say things like, "I'll wear masks and sunglasses and pull my hat down," but those won't work. They have what's called GAIT recognition software, which means how you walk, and believe it or not, everyone walks slightly differently and it's like a fingerprint, so even if you're wearing a mask, if they see you walking down the street, they're like, "That's John, that's Michael, or that's Louise," as the case may be. So they already have a lot of information about us, but now they'll know what you're buying since every product has an SKU, which is a stock keeping unit code with a QR digital scan. They'll know what you're purchasing, and this digital currency is configurable, so they can either restrict or allow specific transactions. Plus, they could have complete control over your money and withhold it from you. Basically, it's not your money anymore. And I've always told people that if you put your money in the bank, it's not your money, it's the bank's money, and they'll give it to you if they want to. Well, this is the same notion on stilts, and now the government is engaged, and everything is quicker, simpler, and inexpensive regarding payments, as well as monitoring, seizure, and account suspensions. Overall, this is more than just digital money. It's also about simplicity and cost reductions, which is how they pitch it. This provides them complete monitoring and control, which is the last manifestation of the comprehensive surveillance state. Just look at what they did to Russia, and not to dispute the conflict in Ukraine, but they froze the Central Bank of Russia's treasury notes. So what's the distinction between that and default? Why do you purchase treasury bills? Well, you purchase them thinking the treasury is going to pay you your money back with interest, but when they freeze them, they'll say, "Well, unfortunately, we're not going to give you your money back." So what's the difference? I would argue that there's no difference, and that we have already defaulted on treasury notes selectively with a political wrapping on it. Given what's going on in China, Europe, and the US sanctions, as well as Russia's default, more likely than not, they're gonna use this digital dollar for political enforcement. Thank you for watching our video. If you like the video and learned something new, please click that like button and subscribe with all notifications turned on so that you won't miss any of our wisdom-inspiring videos.